Matt Lepay, who joins us from Wisconsin, getting ready for the road trip down to Tuscaloosa. And Matt, it's been a year since we last saw you and the Badgers. How's everything going up in Wisconsin?
It's going well. Good to talk to you again. Looking forward to catching up with you and Chris this weekend. And yeah, so far so good. They've won a couple games. I'm not going to say they've looked great doing it, but they have won their first couple games. So people are not going to say really happy, but they're somewhat happy right now.
Let's go back to week 3 last season when Alabama made the trip to Madison to take on the Badgers. Kind of after that ball game, what was next for Wisconsin? What the rest of the 2024 season look like?
Well, it was they really had bad luck with quarterbacks staying healthy. You know, that first drive when Tyler Van Dyke had the season-ending injury, it took a lot of air out of Wisconsin. It would be very hard to say that the outcome would have been any different had he stayed healthy. But 2 years ago, they lose their starter, Tanner Mordecai, for a chunk of the season. They've lost their starter at the first game this season. The backup has played well. But last year for Wisconsin, it was a disappointment. It was the first time since 2001 that the Badgers did not qualify for a bowl game. And they had a couple coulda, shouldas. You know, they were playing really well against Penn State, picked 6 turns a game around. They played really well against Oregon. Oregon probably had a below average performance by its standards, but it was a 3-point game. And then, really, toward the end of the season, you could just see the lack of depth, the lack of size up front. Wisconsin was being run on almost at will at times, and things just kind of went sideways. And they end up with a 5-7 record, which is very, very uncharacteristic. Now, the tradition doesn't match up with Alabama, but Wisconsin has had a very, very respected program for a long time. So that was a tough pill to swallow for people up here, just having a 5-win season.
So, with that, what was the offseason priority for Coach Fickle? First of all, with his staff, and then building the roster for 2025.
Well, he has a new offensive coordinator, and he actually made that change, dismissing Phil Longo after the Oregon game last November. And he hired Jeff Grimes, who's been multiple places, including a run at BYU. He was at Kansas last year, and now in his first year here, veteran coach, really highly respected. And for Wisconsin fans, some of the stuff that they're doing looks similar to some of the better offenses, at least schematically, that they had when Paul Chryst was the offensive coordinator, and even some of the better offenses he had as a head coach. They want to be more physical. They want to have more of a commitment to the running game. The problem is the offensive line has been in flux. It's been an issue without doubt. Their projected starting left tackle had a season-ending injury during spring ball. They've already made some switches. The right tackle is now the left tackle. The left guard is now, or excuse me, the right guard is the right tackle, and they've really had to shuffle the deck. And I think everybody is seeing the growing pains. You always hear about you need continuity in the offensive line. Wisconsin doesn't have that right now. Hopefully, it will develop as the season goes on, but running the football has not been great. You know, they got on the edges with receivers on end rounds or a little reverse action, but otherwise, it's been a little bit of a tough go here so far.
So far, 2 games in, what stood out to you about the first 2 ball games you all have had at Camp Randall Stadium?
Yeah, defense has been better. Going back to your previous question, one of the things they really wanted to do was get bigger and have more depth on the interior of the defensive line. And they feel like they can go 6 deep inside. You guys like Ben Barton, JVR Suggs, transfer from LSU, and a couple of other transfers. They tried to use the portal to get some depth and to get some more 300-pounders, something they were lacking in up front. And on the edges, they've got a lot of different body types, but someone who's emerged, at least in the first 2 games, is Mason Reiger. He's from Hoffman Estates, Illinois, but he's a transfer from Louisville. And couldn't play last year because of an injury. Couldn't participate in spring ball here as he was continuing to rehab. But these first couple of games, he has been a factor. So they've been tougher to run on. But at the same time, you know, I'm pumping the brakes on that because they have not played teams that neither is a Power 4 team. Miami University had no returning starters from a year ago. Middle Tennessee is struggling. So things ramp up. You know, the schedule is a pretty aggressive one that Wisconsin's playing starting this weekend. So we'll see how the Badgers can hold up against some of the better teams running the football.
And back to the offensive side of the ball, again, there have been some injuries already affecting Wisconsin, but what can you tell us about the quarterback position, what we may see there coming up on Saturday?
Yeah, I think the feeling is there's more talent overall at that position than there was a year ago, and I think maybe one of the bigger reasons is there's more experience. Danny O'Neill has stepped in. He had his first start as a Badger last week and was really efficient. He started at San Diego State last year. It was the first freshman to start an opening game for San Diego State since that program became an FBS school. And that goes back to, I guess, 1969, 1970, something like that. And he was pretty good out of San Diego State. He's not a big guy. He can run it when he needs to. You know, he's pretty good at making something out of nothing. He's been again efficient throwing the ball. I'm not going to say he has a rocket arm, but he's been good. He's delivered the ball when the opportunity has been there. So how long Billy Edwards is going to be out remains to be seen. He was injured in the first half of their opening game against Miami of Ohio. But I think there's a growing comfort level that Danny O'Neill can keep things going here with this offense. He has the word swagger is overused, but here it goes. He has a little bit of that to him. Luke Fickell calls it athletic arrogance, and that's a compliment. He just has a belief in himself, and I think that becomes contagious with his teammates. So it's a pretty decent situation that they have at that position to have someone who's the backup but who's been a starter. So he doesn't have that deer in the headlights. Certainly didn't have that in the first two games this season.
And then how about the Badgers on special teams?
Well, that's an area they've really wanted to ramp up. I think in today's game, it's harder and harder to get a lot of returns, either on kickoffs or on punts. That Nathaniel Vakos he won a pretty good kicking battle with a young man named Gavin Lom, who's a Wisconsin native. Vakos has been in the program now. This is his third year. He's transferred from Ohio University. Good strong leg. He had 3 field goals last year of 50 plus, including one against the Tide, one of the few highlights Wisconsin had in that game. So that area has been, I think, that they feel pretty good about that. The punter, Atticus Bertrams, and I'm not going to say he's been off to a great start yet, but he has a very strong leg. His numbers were really good last year, so they feel better there. But like as you know, I think as we talk, I don't know if Alabama's had a lot of return opportunities either. But they do feel like they have some guys, if the opportunity is there, if it's Tyrell Henry in the punt return game or Vinny Anthony in the kick return game, they have a couple of guys who could be pretty dangerous.
And for the Crimson Tide, up next after this ball game, the gauntlet of the SEC schedule begins. Some really tough matchups. I know the same can be said for Wisconsin in the Big Ten. Just kind of set the table for what's ahead after this meeting in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, there are a lot of folks out there, those who rate schedules, who have Wisconsin's at or near the top in terms of difficulty. They'll open up Big Ten play against Maryland, which has actually been off to a pretty good start in the first couple of weeks. They're not talked about a whole lot. But what everybody really looks at with Wisconsin is the month of October. They'll have a bye after Maryland, but their October schedule, they go to Michigan, they have home games against Iowa and Ohio State. Then they fly to Eugene, Oregon to play the Ducks, who doesn't look like they've dropped off from a team that won the Big Ten a year ago. And then even after that, they'll have Washington, which people are thinking could be improved. I mean, 2 years ago, they played for the national championship. They dipped a little bit last year, but they think a lot of people think that they could be at least, in the mix for a pretty high finish in the Big Ten this season. But, they got Illinois, which had a really good year last year in November. But that month of October, I think, is even the casual fans look at that and you're going, ooh, this is quite a challenge. But it's been interesting because Luke Fickell gets asked about that a lot. And in the portal and talking with guys, they don't hide from it. He said he put the schedule in front of these guys, said, here it is. You want to be a part of this? And you want quick answers of yes. And I think he got a lot of quick answers of yes. But it's going to be very interesting to see after this game how Wisconsin is physically, and then as the year goes on, how these guys are going to be able to hold up physically to be able to do some things in the month of November too.
And then how about the mood of the fan base? Last year when Alabama made the trip to Madison, it was such a bucket list experience for so many Alabama fans to go on campus to Madison, Wisconsin, and see jump around and everything that Camp Randall's all about. How about the Wisconsin fans for their first trip to Tuscaloosa? Are we going to see a lot of red in the stands mixed in with our crimson?
Yeah, it's a good question, Roger. I would think so because I know my broadcast partner Mark Tauscher, who's a Green Bay Packers Hall of Famer. We were talking about this on the air. He's really looking forward to this trip, and I think he speaks for many. I was down there for a basketball game years ago, and that was during the holiday break, so a little different vibe on campus. But yeah, this is one I think fans who can and fans who are able to get tickets, they're really going to look forward to it. They have jump around here. I told everybody Dixieland Delight's pretty cool too. So you get a chance to experience that. So I do think there certainly is a lot of intrigue with Badger fans. The trick up here, to be transparent with you, they're trying to get fans excited about the Badgers again. They had a really good crowd for the game this past Saturday, but this program has been spinning its wheels for the last few years, and we all know how that works. Fans, they're skeptical about this team, but I just think that the trip, being down in Tuscaloosa, anybody who knows anything about college football knows the tradition of Alabama, the fan base, how much everybody there cares. And I think it would be really good for Wisconsin fans to just get a taste of it. They don't go to SEC stadiums. It's been years and years since they've done that. So I think it's something that could be pretty special for any Badger fan who goes down there.
We're looking forward to it. Alabama against Wisconsin coming up on Saturday. Matt, just thank you for the time previewing the Badgers, and safe travels here to Alabama coming up this weekend. We look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
My pleasure, Roger. We'll see you this weekend.